content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? You know who I be, man. I'm the G with a PhD. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. Before I get things started like I always do, man, I want to make sure that all my haters, man, are doing really well, man. So shout out to y'all, man. I hope y'all cool and passing a good evening, man, afternoon, or whatever the case may be. You know, what's going on with you? I was about to say the MFers. But hey, man, how y'all doing? How you doing? How y'all doing? And if you're just not getting in, man, make sure you like the video, man, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button, so you can stay on top of what's going on here on the Green Gorilla channel, man. And, like I always do, I got to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel. And that takes a little bit of time, but I think it's well worth the time in my estimation to honor those who honor me, So, shout out to Scott Haywood, man. Black's Word 404, Black Uhuru Strikes, Dr. Thunder, Dr. Tree 33, Rais Muajid, Leroy Honeycutt, Show Me, The Thinker, and Broken Blade. Big up to y'all. Big up to Javon Thompson, Life of Commerce, Travis King, Super Tech, Waffle Weave, Kisses From Afar, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, Apex Prowler, and Karan S. Peace out. Big up to Anthony Davis, BGS, Raphael Brown, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Artisan MC, Damon Brown, Donnell 360, Herbert Lewis, Seven Coast Dojo, Roguish Son, and Pulpit 28. And let me go back to Professor Carl Tone Jones because I butchered your name, sir. But big up to y'all. Big up to Michael Ross, Charles Rogers, Papa Didas, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Brotherly Love. And then we get a jump in the screen, man. I sometimes I just don't know what's going on. But shout out to Brotherly Love, man. Big up. Big up to Charles Gilmore, Patricia Colley, 7Q Pitt, Kwaku Asasi, Gregory Oliver, Greg, Barry Little, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, and Omni Americana. Big up. Big up to Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, Kareen Not Karen, Dr. Rock, J. Charles, Mark Hotley, Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Odd Collard, and Donna Watts. Big up. Big up to hiphop.catv, Coach DC, Kashif Caldwell, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolis, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, and MLR. Big up. Big up to Universal 178, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C-Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Aaron Infinite, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalon Jakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile ADEP, W. Pierre 1, Marvin Battle Jr., and I can't forget my brother in heaven, Force Windu. Big up! On the Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to Kevin Marchbank Owens, William Joyner, Javon Thompson, Tyrone Hampton, Jules Winfield, Romello Scuggs, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Anu 219, Preserve Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and the Sangwa. Big up to y'all, man. Y'all deserve a round of applause, man. Thank you for supporting the Green Gorilla channel, man. I appreciate all y'all do, man. Y'all deserve that round of applause. And if you're wondering how you can also support the Green Gorilla channel with a membership, man, here's how you do it. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, man, what's cracking? We back. You know who I be, man. I'm the G with a PhD. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. Although it seems like nowadays it's very difficult for you to be able to express yourself freely in any capacity without the woke mob coming after you. But you know, somebody gotta say something, man. Somebody gotta keep it real. Somebody got to be able to, put the work in, the conversation, keep it going, keep the fire burning. Shout out to all of y'all out there, man. AL Evans, I see you. BGS, I see you. I thought I had the Patreon, man, out there already, my brother BGS. Thought I already had it up there, man. Christopher Clipper, big up to you. Mr. McDonnie Mac, big up. Alonzo Hall, I ain't seen you in a minute, big up. Javon Thompson, big up. Very Little, you hold me down as always, big up. I see Keep It 100 in his house, big up, man. Brotherly love, keep it real, you know what I'm saying? I feel you, my brother. Commander Bastard, appreciate you, big up, man. And Jamaica SYSBM, big up to you as well. So anyway, man, I'm doing this video, man. It's not going to be like some sort of titillating, subject. But to me it is, because, I'm a philosopher or whatever the case may be. I'm supposedly a lover of wisdom or whatever. But, BGS prompted me to do this because he asked me the question at the latter part of one of my streams. And the question basically went like this, okay? Some people say that the Enlightenment philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau is responsible for, the French Revolution. And in addition to that, contemporary incarnations of social justice politics and people who are advocates and activists in that vein. And to some degree, I would say, yeah, it is true that, Jean-Jacques Rousseau had an influence on the revolutionaries in France during the time of the French Revolution. And yes, he still has some influence over people in the academy and activists, whether directly or indirectly. I mean, his influence is there. I mean, he's like one of the central 3 social and political philosophers, of the social contract tradition. I mean, not that there aren't others, but I mean, because you can put Kant in there as well. You can throw him in there. And before Hobbes, you can throw Grotius in there. Okay? But, I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole, man. But yeah, he has an impact. But is he responsible for the French Revolution? What impact does Jean-Jacques Rousseau have over feminism? Well, the answer is complicated, so I just can't give it all to you in one sitting, so I got to give it to you in many sittings. But today I'm going to talk about the social contract tradition in general, and then, I'll get to tomorrow probably if if I have the energy to muster up, to do it, I'm going to talk about Rousseau's impact on the French Revolution. And then after that, I'm going to give you a direct set of references about Rousseau's opinion about women in I can't say contemporary culture, but in the Enlightenment era, what he thought about women, whether they should be educated, whether they should have, equality among men, do women play mind games and so on and so forth. Like what do women do and what status should they hold in civil society? I'm gonna give you all of that, okay? And I think, you want to hear that. But at any rate, I want to talk about the social contract tradition. A lot of y'all, are educated either formally or informally. But, if you really want to know where the social contract tradition begins, it begins in ancient times. One of the first references to the social contract tradition can be found in Book 2 of Plato's Republic, where you have the interlocutor Glaucon arguing, and he says this: they say that to do injustice is by nature good. Now, do you get that? They say that this is Glaucon talking. Now, of course, Plato is going to try to refute this argument, but it's not as if this argument hasn't been made before. Namely that they say that to do injustice is by nature good. To suffer injustice, evil. But that the evil is greater than the good. And so when men have both done and suffered injustice and have had experience of both, not being able to avoid the one and obtain the other, they think they had better agree among themselves to have neither. In other words, if you suffered injustice and you've done injustice, you basically come to the conclusion, it's better if we agree among ourselves to have neither. Hence arise laws and mutual covenants. Okay, and that which is ordained by law is termed by them lawful and just. So you got instances of the social contract tradition going all the way back to 300 BC. And even in, Asian culture, you got a Buddhist text that is written in the 2nd century BC, and they say something similar. The social contract tradition is also covered there. They say in the early days of the cosmic cycle, and this is one of the legends of Mahasamata, right? In the early days of the cosmic cycle, man lived on an immaterial plane, dancing on air in a sort of fairyland where there was no need for food or clothing, no private property, family, government, or laws. So you don't need any of that. In the beginning, it's like the Garden of Eden, like a cosmic story, right? Cosmological story. Then gradually the process of cosmic decay began its work and mankind became earthbound and felt the need of food and shelter. As men lost their primeval glory, distinctions of class arose, and they entered into agreements with one another, accepting the institution of private property and the family. Now notice, in the state before the fall, the cosmic decay, there was no family, no private property. Okay? But with the introduction of the decay and with this distinctions among class, you get private property in the family. And with that, you get theft, murder, adultery, and other kinds of crimes. And so the people met together and decided to appoint one man from among them to maintain order in return for a share of the produce of their fields and herds. He was called the Great Chosen One, and he received the title of Raja because he pleased the people. So, I mean, the social contract tradition is not brand new, it's ancient. The idea that, you give up a portion of your rights to a sovereign or to an institution or a group or a collective, or representatives or whatever the case may be. And that'll take you out of the suboptimal situation that exists within the state of nature. Now, I'm just going to tell you, man, I'm just going to be upfront with you right now, man. Most of these social contract theories, they posit that human beings exist in this primeval or some natural state individually and atomistically. I don't believe that, bro. I don't adhere to that. I think it's bullshit, to be perfectly honest, but that's just me. Because human beings exist ontologically. This is just my opinion now. We exist in association. We never lived in a pre-social state where we're possessed with a full set of inalienable rights. Now, I know that we have these so-called rights. I'm not saying we don't have them or shouldn't try to, utilize them. But I mean, philosophically, come on now. I don't think that there was ever a time before time, a magical time or a pre-social time, a pre-political time. That's just my opinion, okay? If you want to challenge me on that, you can. But what I want to do really, though, is I want to talk about Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. I'm not going to even talk about Rousseau today. Because a lot of people think that they know what these thinkers think, but I'm going to tell you, you really don't know what they think. And unless you've read it, and you've read it carefully, and you're open-minded. A lot of times what people do is they'll go to the secondary literature, they'll read it, and then they'll gather what, they need to gather from it, and then run with it and act like they know what the individual said. But I'm going to do something different. I'm going to read Thomas Hobbes to you, not a whole hell of a lot of it, but I'm going to read enough of it for you to, to understand what his position on the state of nature actually is. Then I'm going to do the same for John Locke. So that you know what his basic thoughts are. And I ain't going to do this all day today. I'm only going to do this for about an hour today. And then I'm out of here. I'm out. And I'll do something similar tomorrow. And then after that, I'll do something similar to that. But again, this is not like, me going off on women and shit all damn night. This has nothing to do with that today. So many of you, if you're not thinking people, you can go ahead and go on and check out the other shit elsewhere so you can get a visceral response or you can get your hate on or whatever the case may be. But you ain't going to get that here tonight. I'm just letting you know. So anyway, man, what does Thomas Hobbes say? And I've said some of this before. Like, I'm going to share the window, man. I'm going to share screen, share the Chrome tab. Hobbes, chapters 13 through 15. I assume you can see that. Can you see that? Can you see that? If you can see that, put a 1 in the chat, man. I don't know if you can see the shit or not. All right? I don't know if you can see it or not. Can you see that on the screen? Okay, so anyway, yeah, you can see it. So these are selections from Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. Now, it's a modernized, because the Leviathan is written in Old English. I'm not trying to read Old English. I have a modern adaptation of it. I find it to be pretty much accurate, and so therefore I'm going to read that to you. So this is from chapter 13 of Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. And I'm not going to give you any context. I'm just going to give you the words that he's saying from chapter 13. Right? Because it's difficult to disagree with a philosopher while they're making the argument. You can disagree after the fact or looking at the secondary literature, you can disagree. But when you're reading the person right up close and personal, right up front, and you have intimate contact with their text, it's difficult for you to sometimes refute what it is that they're saying if you follow them syllogistically from one point to the next. But I'm digressing, man. And tell me where he's wrong. Tell me where you disagree with Thomas Hobbes, man. He says this: nature has made men so equal in their physical and mental capacities that, although sometimes we may find one man who is obviously stronger in body or quicker in mind than another, yet taking all the difference between one and another is not so great that one man can claim to have any advantage of strength or skill or the like that can't just as well be claimed by some others. In other words, ain't nobody is big or too big and above and beyond that of anybody else in body or mind. And he says, as for the strength of body, the weakest man is strong enough to kill the strongest. The weakest man is strong enough to kill the strongest. I've told you this on several occasions. People act like they, I'm a manly man, I'm a tough man, I can't be beat up, man, I can't be hurt, man. Any of y'all can get touched, man. You're a human being. You're flesh and blood. Anybody can get hit up. Anyway, he says the weakest man is strong enough to kill the strongest either by a secret plot or by an alliance with others who are in the same danger that he is in. In other words, people can gang up on the big guy and beat him down, break him down to his very last compound. See how I sound a little irrational? You can get broken down to your very last compound. People can gang up on you and break you. So nobody is that much more powerful than anybody else. Then he says, as for the faculties of mind, because there's a lot of guys out here who say, I'm smarter than he is. I have, better powers of ratiocination than he does. He's a dimwit. He's a moron. But the question then is, as far as, Hobbes is concerned, I find that men are even more equal in these than they are in bodily strength. Right? In this discussion, I set aside skills based on words, and especially the skill known as science of being guided by general and infallible rules. Very few people have this, and even they don't have it with respect to many things. I am setting it aside because it isn't a natural faculty. So all of those people who know science and mathematics and, geometry and all of these things, he's like, so what? Most men don't have those powers. And some of the most powerful men don't have those powers. They got other people to do it for them. They got attorneys, mathematicians, whole team of people to do it for them. You understand what I'm saying, though. You get it. So anyway, he's setting it aside because it isn't a natural faculty we are born with, nor is it something that we acquire, as we acquire prudence while looking for something else. Prudence is simply experience. And men will get an equal amount of that in an equal period of time spent on things that they equally apply themselves to. So if you spend some time working on something, you're going to be able to acquire information about what it is that you're actually doing. It's like an apprentice learning how to do, how to become an electrician or a plumber, carpenter. If you spend time doing the craft, you're not going to be that much more knowledgeable than the other individual. Okay? You're not that much smarter than the next person, right? And then he says, what may make such equality incredible is really just one's vain sense of your own wisdom, which most men think they have more of than the common herd. That is more than anyone else except for a few others whom they value because of their fame or because their agreement is with them. It's just a fact about human nature that however much a man may acknowledge many others to be more witty or more eloquent or more learned than he is, he won't easily believe that many men are as wise as he is. Ain't that crazy, man? That's crazy. Now, whether you buy the argument or not, man, it is a witty argument to make. In other words, who among you is going to sit there and say to themselves, I'm like among the dumbest of human beings. He's way smarter than I am. No human being is going to sit there and think that about themselves. Everybody esteems themselves to some degree. They think that they're of sound mind enough to be among the smartest of human beings. Period. Okay? This is 13. The Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes, chapter 13, bruh. You, okay? Anyway, it's just a fact about human nature that however much a man may acknowledge many others to be more witty, more eloquent, or more learned than he is, he won't easily believe that many men are as wise as he is, for he sees his own wisdom close up and other men's at a distance. This, however, shows that the equality of men rather than their inequality. For ordinarily, there is no greater sign that something is equally distributed than that every man is contented with his share. So everybody, he's just basically saying, look, nobody in nature is that much smarter, even in social or civil society. Nobody's that much smarter than anybody else, and not anybody is that much stronger than anybody else that they can't get touched. Bottom line. So there's not that much inequality. Okay? Especially in nature. Okay? But anyway, but then he says this. And this is the kicker. Competition. This equality of ability produces equality of hope for the attaining of our goals. So if any two men want a single thing which they can't both enjoy, they become enemies. And each of them on the way to his goal, which is principally his own survival, though sometimes merely his delight, tries to destroy or subdue the other. And so it comes about then when someone has through farming and building come to possess a pleasant estate, if an invader would have nothing to fear but that one man's individual power, there will probably be an invader. Someone who comes with united forces to deprive him not only of the fruit of his labor, but also of his life or liberty. And the successful invader will then be in similar danger from someone else. So it's a never-ending story. Just look at the dope gang, man, and all this kind of shit you see on TV related to power and the BMF. You both want one thing. I want to control the dope in this area. Well, you both want it, right? Well, that makes you enemies. Now you're competing over scarce resources. Okay? Then you get distrust. Because of this distrust among men, The most reasonable way for any man to make himself safe is to strike first. Strike first. You want to look into the European mind, here it is. The most reasonable way for any man to make himself safe is to strike first. That is, by force or cunning, subdue other men, as many of them as he can, until he sees no other power great enough to endanger him. Thank you, Oliver the Gray. This is no more than what he needs for his own survival. And it's generally allowed. And it goes further than you might think. Some people take pleasure in contemplating their own power in the acts of conquest, pursuing them further than their security requires. So in other words, you done went beyond what you're doing more than trying to keep yourself safe. Now you're trying to actually gain by being greedy. You're being gluttonous now. Trying to be Nino Brown now. Trying to be Big Meats and them boys now. You already cool now. Your belly's full, but you're out there acting like you're hungry. You're still acting like you got to get it in. You need something to put in your belly or something like that. Okay? But anyway, when you do that, this increases the security needs of others. The more gluttonous, the more you want beyond what you actually need for your own safety and security. You do the same to others, so it's an escalating thing. It escalates, right? This distrust. People who would otherwise be glad to be at ease within modest bounds have to increase their power by further invasions, because without that, in a purely defensive posture, they wouldn't be able to survive for long. I was just watching Why the Last Man the other night, man. I was just watching Why the Last Man. Now, whether you agree with it or not, you got a band of women, right, who, like one psychotic woman, man, she hates all men, like, real frumpy, looking lady or whatever the case may be, real masculine looking woman. And for the most part, she just really despises men, but she's a fraud. Because she was always manipulated and coerced by men in her immediate surroundings. But now she gets to play out her fantasies. But anyway, the whole point is she has a band of women and they go around robbing other women. Taking resources from other women. Not that they even need, they just doing it for kicks. So now other people got to be on more alert because of people like you and your band of women going around taking and, stealing. But you get the general thrust, right? Then he goes from that to glory. Every man wants his associates to value him as highly as he values himself. Thank you, BGS. Appreciate that. Every man wants his associates to value him as highly as he values himself. And any sign that he is disregarded or undervalued naturally leads a man to try, as far as he dares, to raise his value in the eyes of others. Do you see this? Right? Every man wants his associates to value him like he values himself. I want you to respect me. I want you to love me like I love myself. For those who have disregarded him, he does this by violence. for others by example. I say, as far as he dares, but when there is no common power to keep them at peace, as far as he dares is far enough to make them destroy each other. That is why men don't get pleasure, and indeed do get much grief from being in the company of other men without there being a power that can overawe them all. You think you know the social contract tradition, but he's laying out the stages for why it's necessary to actually be removed from the conditions that he's painting here, like the situations and scenarios he's painting. He's saying something about how nature is amongst men and how when there's scarce resources, that makes people, it turns them into enemies. And that men begin to distrust each other. And, one of the natural laws is to preserve your own life. And sometimes the best defense is an offense. And then he talks about, how men think about themselves and how they want others to respect them and how difficult it is for men to take slights to their reputations. So this is a suboptimal situation for Hobbes. Right? It's not an optimal situation. So that in the nature of man, we find three principal causes of discord: competition, distrust, and glory. The first makes men invade for gain, the second for safety, and the third for reputation. The first use violence to make themselves masters of other men's persons, wives, children, and cattle. Check that out now. We should know something about this in this here United States of America, huh? Don't you know something about being another person's possession? Having a master? Somebody being able to bang your wife, your ladies? Have control, buy and sell your children like cattle? Huh? Anyway, he says the first competition is a situation in which men make themselves masters of other men's persons, their wives, their children, and whatever they got in order to continue to get money. At that time, it's cattle. You could be a tractor, a trailer, a rig, whatever the case may be, right? Today. The second, use it to defend themselves and their family's property. The third, use it for trifles. A word, a smile, a different opinion. And we see this here in the fucking manosphere. Somebody got a different opinion. Now it's time to get violent. Man, what the fuck, man? I'm gonna beat your ass, nigga. I'm gonna whip your ass, nigga. Let me stop, man. Let me stop, bro. Anyway, he goes on to say this, man. The third, use it for trifles, a word, a smile, a different opinion, and any other sign of a low regard for them personally. If not directly, then obliquely through a disrespectful attitude to their family, their friends, their nation, their profession, or their name. And then he goes on to say, this makes it obvious that for as long as men live without a common power to keep them in awe, they are in the condition known as war. And it is a war of every man against every man. For war doesn't consist just in battle or the act of fighting, but in a period of time during which it is well enough known that people are willing to join a battle. So the temporal element in the notion of when there is war is like the temporal element in when there is bad weather. What constitutes bad weather is not a rain shower or two, but an inclination to reign through many days together. Similarly, what constitutes war is not actual fighting, but a known disposition to fight during a time when there is no assurance to the contrary. All other time is peace. Therefore, whatever results from a time of war, when every man is enemy to every man, also results from a time when men live with no other security but what their own strength and ingenuity provides them with. In such conditions, there's no place for hard work because there's no assurance that it will yield results. And consequently, no cultivation of the earth, no navigation or use of materials that can be imported by sea, no construction of large buildings, no machines for moving things that require much force, no knowledge of the face of the earth, no account of time, no practical skills, no literature or scholarship, no society, and worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death. And the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So that's where it all comes from. When you hear people talk about Thomas Hobbes, and he says that the state of nature is a condition in which the life of men is solitary, meaning you're alone. It's nasty. You're fighting all the time, and you die quick. So then he goes on to say, it may seem strange to you, if you haven't thought hard about these things, that nature should thus separate men from one another and make them apt to invade and destroy one another. So perhaps you won't trust my derivation of this account from the nature of the passions and will want to have the account confirmed by experience. Well then, think about how you behave. When going on a journey, you arm yourself. And try not to go alone. When going to sleep, you lock your doors. Even when inside your own house, you lock your chest. And you do all this when you know that there are laws and armed public officers of the law to revenge any harms that are done to you. Ask yourself, what opinion do you have of your fellow subjects when you ride armed? Or your fellow citizens when you lock your doors? Of your children and servants when you lock your chest? You don't even trust your kids, motherfucker. Your own kids gonna rob your ass. He said, even when you got laws, you don't trust motherfuckers. You don't even trust people when you got law. So what if there is a situation where there is no law? Like The Walking Dead, Negan. Oh, man. So anyway, in all this, don't you accuse mankind as much by your actions as I do by my words. And he's saying, look, neither of us is criticizing man's nature. The desires and other passions of men aren't sinful in themselves. So a lot of people would like to say, well, what does Hobbes actually think about human nature? And most people will come out and say, oh, it's just bad. Like he believes people are evil. No, he doesn't. He does believe that human beings look out for their own interest and they have a natural inclination to do so. He's going to say that there are laws of nature which basically force you to preserve your own self, your own life. So yes, there are natural laws, one of them being the law of self-preservation. Okay? But he's not saying that man is innately evil. He's saying that conditions which arise amongst men can lead to suboptimal outcomes. And therefore, there needs to be someone who can put all of the men in awe, such that this suboptimal situation can be reversed. It can be made into an optimal situation. And I can go on and on and on, but I think what you need to understand is that ultimately the state, the sovereign, the Leviathan is that entity which is going to be able to come in, create laws, create order, and prevent men from destroying one another. Now, I'm telling you, all of this is fascinating to me, you know, especially when I was younger. Now, I still find it fascinating to see what people think and the arguments that they make about human nature, about, the origin of cooperation amongst human beings, whatever the case may be. What can go right, what can go wrong, and so on and so forth, man. But it's, I just don't buy state of nature theory at all. I just think the shit is counterfactual. It's based on mythology. And we have more information now than we've ever had anthropologically about how human beings have lived. And also we can look at animals who also live in association. But then I digress. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Later on. But anyway, he says, neither of us is criticizing man's nature. The desires and other passions of men aren't sinful in themselves, nor are actions that come from those passions until those who act know a law that forbids them. They can't know this until laws are made. And they can't be made until men agree on the person who is to make them. Paul Atreides, Moses, Muhammad, Hammurabi. You understand what I'm saying here. But why try to demonstrate to learned men something that is known even to dogs who bark at visitors? Sometimes, indeed, only as strangers, but in the night at everyone. Thank you, Gold Professor. Appreciate the donation. Thank you, Barry Little. Thank you for your support, man. Appreciate it. It may be thought that there's never been such a time. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's just my opinion. But he's going to argue against me in my position here. It may be thought that there has never been such a time, such a condition of war as this. And I believe it was never generally like this all over the world. Still, there are many places where people live like that even now. And look, he's going to talk about Americans, the Native Americans. For the savage people in many parts of America have no government at all except for the government of small families whose harmony depends on natural lust. Those savages live right now in the brutish manner I have described. Anyway, we can see what way of life there would be if there were no common power to fear from the degenerate way of life into which civil war has led men who had formerly lived under a peaceful government. So to me, I don't fuck with Hobbes right there, though. I think that's just some bullshit. The Native Americans are savages, but you went over there, took all of their shit, well, it came over here, took all of their land, gave them diseases. With force, you took what they had and then you called them savages. all depends on, I guess all men have such great esteem about themselves. So I guess, how dare you consider your own self to be a savage? Huh? It just seems like he just threw everything he just talked about in the beginning out of the window when he started talking about the Native Americans. But I digress. That's crazy to me, man. It was crazy. Anyway, he says, even if there had never been any time at which individual men were in a state of war one against another, this is how kings and persons of sovereign authority relate to one another at all times. Because of their independence from one another, they are in continual mutual jealousies, like gladiators with their weapons pointing, and their eyes fixed on one another. Sovereigns have forts, garrisons, and guns on the frontiers of their kingdoms, and permanent spies on their neighbors. This is a posture of war, as much as the gladiators is. But because in this, the sovereigns uphold the economy of their nations, their state of war doesn't lead to the sort of misery that occurs when individual men are at liberty from laws and government. So in this war of every man against every man, nothing can be unjust. The notions of right and wrong, justice and injustice have no place there. Where there is no common power, there is no law. Where there is no law, there is no injustice. In war, the two chief virtues are force and fraud. Justice and injustice are not among the faculties of the body or of the mind. If they were, they could be in a man who was alone in the world, as his senses and passions can. They are qualities that relate to men in society, not in solitude. A further fact about the state of war of every man against every man. In it, there's no such thing as ownership, no legal control, no distinction between mine and thine. Rather, anything that a man can get is his for as long as he can keep it. So much for the poor condition that man is actually placed in by mere nature. But as I now go on to explain, he can extricate, pull himself away from it, partly through his passions, partly through his reason. The passions that incline men to peace are fear of death, desire for things that are necessary for comfortable living, and a hope to attain these by hard work. And reason suggests convenient items in a peace treaty that men may be got to agree on. These items are the ones that in other contexts are called the laws of nature. I shall have more to say about them in the 2 following chapters. And then he goes into the law of natures. And you'd be surprised. A lot of times, the way these people are characterized, even John Locke. And I think I might wait and reserve John Locke for tomorrow, because this is a lot to swallow in one sitting. I could not, if it was a seminar or something, I'd just be, okay, let's go until we get it done. But the reality is, here's a guy saying, here's what the state of nature looks like. It's fucked up. It's suboptimal. It's not gravy, bruh. This is like fucking the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse is what it's like. So in order to pull us out of it, don't you desire to live comfortably? Don't you want to live? Huh? Don't you want peace amongst men? Or do you just want chaos? Do you want to live in dysfunction and chaos? Or would you rather live in a civil society where there's a strong figure, central authority figure, who can basically keep y'all in check? Which do you want? So basically, Thomas Hobbes says that the state of nature is fucked up, it's foul. But I will say this. Now notice, and I want to go here just so you can see I just want to highlight this right here. In this war, in the state of nature for Thomas Hobbes, there's nothing that's unjust. Nothing that's wrong or right. There's no law. The only thing that is a virtue in this state is force and fraud. There's no such thing as justice and injustice. And look at this. This is the line that I think is the most important. In it, there is no such thing as ownership. That's very important. It's crucial, critical. BGS, I'm telling you right here, right now, when it comes to the difference between John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, here it is. Here it is. Bam. And I said, God damn. That's it right there. There's no such thing as ownership in the state of nature for Thomas Hobbes. There's no distinction between yours and mine. Anything you can get your hands on is yours for as long as you can keep it. Now you'll see as I read. Now, if you got any questions about this, man, feel free to join in right now. You see, I've already shared the link. If you don't have any questions, I'm about to go about my business and pass a good evening. Right? But here's the deal. John Locke is going to say something a little bit different than this. Because for John Locke, you can hold on to property. There is such a thing as property in the state of nature. For Thomas Hobbes, there is not. Now, I'm just foreshadowing here. As it pertains to John Locke, inequality can result in the state of nature in and of itself. Now, you just saw me explain what Thomas Hobbes said at the beginning of this passage. He says, nature has made men so equal in their physical and mental capacities that although sometimes we may find one man who is obviously stronger or quicker of mind than another, but, yet taking all of these differences between one and the other, they're not so great that one man can claim to have any advantage of strength or skill or the like that can't just as well be claimed by some others. All I can do is imagine Dave Chappelle shake, with his hand over the glass like he did in the closing. John Locke is going to say, no. Yes, you can acquire property in the state of nature. And that's the single biggest difference. But as it pertains to Rousseau, Rousseau is going to return back to this idea of equality as it pertains to the state of nature. And he's going to have a different idea about what kind of conditions do human beings exist in the state of nature. That's why when when Jean-Jacques Rousseau begins to talk about the social contract and about equality and about freedom, the first thing he says in the essay, because basically Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote an essay. And the essay was about, well, do you think society is making us freer? Or do you think it's making us worse? Or are we becoming, freer, or are we like caught up in more entanglements now because of the society in which we live? And I think Jean-Jacques Rousseau's answer is the latter. Like, man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. And so I got to take you through this, because they each have different ideas and views. So, like I said, BGS, I can answer the question, but I can't answer it all at one time. I got to break it up into pieces. I got to break it off into parts. And I'm trying to do it in a way that is accessible to everyone. I'm not trying to do this in such a way that I'm being professorial, or I'm trying to use pedantic or bookish terms in order to appear, more intelligent and, oh, I'm so smart and all this fuckery. I'm trying to make it to where everybody can get it. But there's something different going on. So Thomas Hobbes, everybody's pretty much roughly equal. John Locke is going to say, well, there can be inequality in nature, and the state is not required to get rid of that. But I'll show you that. I will demonstrate that tomorrow. Because for John Locke, the state is supposed to protect inequality. Let that soak through your brain cell and get into your Abdullah oblongata for the more. That's why people who are like wealthy as a motherfucker love John Locke. You love him. So that's just a window in. I can't give, I've given you some of it. I can't give you all of it without losing your attention. So, thank you, Charles Rich. Appreciate that. So, just understand that tomorrow I'm going to be talking about John Locke. I've already given you the answer, but I need to take you step by step through the process so you can see what he actually says and how he gets to, the conclusions that he gets to. Because it's masterful the way that these guys construct their arguments. They didn't have like fucking Instagram and YouTube and all of these distractions and shit. These were wordsmiths. This is all they did. I mean, this was their entertainment. But anyway, man, go back and read their actual words, and I'll try to leave the links to these passages, right? But you'll see they have different ideas about what function the state is supposed to provide for people who exist within suboptimal outcomes. And for Rousseau, and this is why Rousseau is championed by feminists, because he favors equality and active participation of everyone. Now, according to Thomas Hobbes, you can have a Leviathan, a fucking autocratic monarch, come in and control and bring everyone in awe, a dictator. For John Locke, it was the Glorious Revolution in England that was emblematic of, what kind of government should exist, a constitutional monarchy. When it comes to Jean-Jacques Rousseau and people who have this idea that, it's unfair, for people to preserve inequalities in the social contract, well, fuck it, burn it all down. And so there you have it. The difference between John Locke and his, response to inequality, or what he would consider to be unjust political, institutions, and what Rousseau would think. It's just different. It's different. But I'll get into the intricacies of that. But then what's interesting though is, see, I have a great paper, bro. I swear this is one of the greatest papers I read in a long time that has Jean-Jacques Rousseau detailing his thoughts about what women ought to be able to do in civil society and what they shouldn't be able to do. And goddamn, I'll be damned if some of these arguments don't like match up with some of the arguments that men are making today in the manosphere and the black manosphere. But there's a feminist who's going to be responding to these arguments, and you should see them fucking responses. To me, it was entertaining to read. So maybe I'll do that with y'all Friday. But tomorrow I'm gonna do John Locke. So anyway, man, any questions? You can give them to me, man. Leave them in the chat, and I'll holler at y'all next time. But if you got any questions, man, not leave them in the chat, but leave them in the comment section. And then I'll get with y'all. Again, man, this ain't, I love philosophy, man. I'm not the best at it, you know what I'm saying? But I like it a lot, you know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. I'm the hood philosopher, put it that way. I love this shit. And I like to make it accessible to others and put it in terms where everybody can get it and understand it. All right. So anyway, man, I'll holler at y'all later, man. Y'all be peaceful, man. Pass a good evening. I'm ready to see Doc Johnson, man. I'll holler at y'all later, man. One.